Hey, welcome back to Play and Trade Guitars. I'm John, that's Zach behind the camera, and this is Play and Trade Guitars, where we play it and trade it. We're checking out the Fender Vintera II 50s Nocaster today. What's a Nocaster? I'll tell you. More importantly, I'll tell you everything you need to know if you're in the market for this guitar. We'll pull it apart on the bench before we plug it in and play it. But at the top, if you're in the market for this guitar or any other gear, click to buy new gear using our link. It helps us make these demos, and in the States, you get fast free shipping and super easy payment plans. It makes buying new gear so easy. Check it out, pinned in the comments or in the description. We're also giving away a Martin D28. For real, we're giving it away when we hit 100,000 subscribers. To win that guitar, hit subscribe now. You must be subscribed. Turn on notifications and use the Gleam entry link also in the description or pinned in the comments. All right, without further ado, let's take a look at the Vintera II 50s Nocaster. I'm really excited about this series. You can check out our videos on the series as well. Let's get to it. All right, so here it is, the 50s Nocaster. Why do they call it the Nocaster? It's really just a Telecaster without a label that says Telecaster. No sticker. Why? They got sued by Gretsch back in the day for having Broadcaster on here. It was originally called the Broadcaster. That was a no-go. All they did was clip the sticker off. And so what it does is retain the attributes of the 1950 era Nocaster or Telecaster with a thick U-shaped neck, like a baseball bat neck. You can feel it as soon as you pick the guitar up. Blonde color, also available in a 2-color sunburst. Black guard, just quintessential Telecaster looks. Brass saddles, looks incredible. I believe they went with modern wiring. On the old school Tellies, they actually had a different tone circuit, but this should, and as we'll find out on the bench, operate like a modern 3-way switch. And then vintage vibe, vintage character just oozing from this guitar at $1149. It's very reasonably priced. They make these in Mexico, but they went all out on the details, and I absolutely love it. So let's head over to the bench and pull it apart. All right, so the Telecaster to me is just the guitar that they got right out of the gate for the most part, and it's changed very little. Apart from the name, the very beginning, Broadcaster, then after the dispute with Gretsch, they pulled that Broadcaster label off. We have the Nocaster around 1950, 1951 before it officially becomes the Telecaster. Why do they call it the Telecaster? Because television was a new invention, it was super popular, and a great name that stuck. Perfect name for this guitar. Starting up at the top of the headstock, you'll notice that they have the silver spaghetti letter Fender logo. Obviously again, it's a Nocaster, so no other sticker up at the top. And you got these vintage style tuners, which look fantastic. Nice gloss finish on the neck itself. And this neck, I mean, if you get a look, even just visually, it is just a fat sucker of a neck. U-shaped 50s style neck. Nice and beefy in the hands. You've got 21 vintage tall frets on this guitar, black dot markers. Coming down to the body, this one's in blonde. It's also in two-tone sunburst. Classic black guard, and I love the attention to detail. Check this out. They've even got the flathead screws holding the black pickguard down. And then you've got the ashtray bridge with brass saddles. Again, great touch. Now, one noticeable difference from the original Nocaster is that they have modern wiring, which is much more practical. Originally, these controls would have had basically the bridge, the neck with tone, and then the neck with a built-in tone circuit which rolled off all the highs and kind of had a very dark, kind of washed out sound. Not entirely usable, so they just went with more modern 3-way selector, bridge neck, which is one of my favorite sounds, period, on a Telecaster. It's like the quintessential sound of a Telly for rhythmic percussive playing, and then that great neck pickup as well. Let's get these strings loosened up and we'll take a look under the hood. Nut comes in at 1.64 inches, 0.94 inches at the first. That is the thickest first fret reading I think we've ever had here. 0.97 inches at the 12th. So there's really not much of a difference between the first and the 12th. It's just thick all the way. Big baseball U-shaped 50s neck. I mean, like on a 50s style neck, like a 50s style Les Paul, that would be the reading of the 12th fret. And that's the reading of the first fret. So it's pretty wild. And then coming down to the body, we have an alder body. 1.74 inches thick. Go ahead and pop this neck out. Get a look at the raw alder underneath here, and then take a look at his neck. It's a maple neck, of course. You got the vintage style truss rods, so you have to loosen those screws at least enough to pop the neck up from this angle to get at it if you need to make an adjustment. And then the radius, they went with a vintage radius, so it's 7 1/4 radius. What that means is that the neck is a little more humped and pronounced, so you will feel that in the hands. That in combination with that big thick U shape is definitely a vintage feel for sure. All right, we'll take a look at the black guards, see what they got going on. They just got that, this is for the wires to kind of feed everything through. You see the cloth wiring, they really went the extra mile. We got the 50s style single coil pickups here. Classic Tele knobs will flip up the control plate. Get a look at the wiring under the hood. Modern style Tele wiring. CTS 250K pots and the 3-way selector switch. You can see the cloth wiring on these vintage style 50s single coil pickups. Nicely done here. Flip on the multimeter and get a reading on these pickups. We're at 6.4 in bridge, 7.0 in neck, 3.3 combined. All right, let's get a weight. 7 pounds, 13 ounces. We'll call it 7 3/4 pounds. All right, and flipping the guitar around, you will, well, before I even get there, you will absolutely notice the shape of this neck. It is a big fat U, as I was telling you. Good, great Tele sound unplugged. Great snappy ring to it. Unplugged, it sounds exactly what I want a Tele to sound like, so I'm super pumped. I like a thicker neck, like even on a Les Paul, I like a 50 style Les Paul neck, and it's funny, the first fret of this guitar reads like the 12th fret of a 50 style Les Paul. So it's thick all the way, that's the way I would describe it. So you've gotta want a thick neck, but it feels great in the hands. It gives you a lot of stability, I think. And then it's just oozing with like that perfect vintage character. And you know, just remember, if you're in the market for this guitar or any other gear, click to buy that gear using our link. It really does help us make these demos, and you get all those perks as well. So check that link in the description. Here comes my favorite part. We're gonna plug it in, make some sounds. I'll give you clean tones, we'll dirty it up, and I'll let it sing behind a track. On the other side of the playing demo and performance, I'll give you my raw, honest reaction to playing this guitar for the first time, and I'll give it an honest score. So stay tuned for my final score. I'll see you on the other side. Let's get to work. right, Vintera II, very cool vintage series from Fender at a great price. This Nocaster, 50s Nocaster at $1149, great price. Click the link down below to check out everything that you need to know in terms of pricing, what's in stock, but they've got the 2-color sunbursts. They've got this in blonde, which looks great. And you stuck with me to the end, so I'm gonna give you my final score. I base the score based on 3 main categories: overall playability, overall sound, and overall value. I'm going to tie together playability and sound by saying something out of the gate, which is this guitar is somewhat limited in what it wants to do for you. That can be good or bad depending on what you're looking for. Let's start with playability. Number 1 is the big fat neck. You've got to want a thick neck. If you don't want a really thick neck on your guitar, this is not going to be the guitar for you. Playability, it will affect playability if you're not used to that. Also, from a playability standpoint, I love that they have the 3 brass saddles. I tend to put compensated brass saddles on Tellies. I did notice that pretty much no matter what I would do, I feel like this guitar doesn't quite want to just stay in tune. And part of that is kind of the charm, if you will, of the 3 brass barrel saddles on a Telecaster. And it has a certain sound to it. So again, if that's for you, great. But that does affect playability to me, because it's not as easy to keep this guitar in tune. But other than that, the actual experience of a big fat neck, if you like that, it's really cool. It's almost like a really fat, like Les Paul Jr. or something. And it's very cool on a Telecaster, but you've got to be into that. In terms of playability, I'm going to go ahead and give it an 8.3 on overall playability. Moving on to overall sound. This guitar, again, I'm going to say this: it will do the things it wants to do. It will not do the things that this guitar does not want to do. And these vintage-inspired 50s pickups, they have great single-coil chime, and they really can get really sweet and soulful, as particularly with less gain. When you think of this guitar, my advice to you is play it with less gain. Play it as they would in the 50s. Not ripping through like a big muff fuzz, or even, I don't even think it took terribly well to a tube screamer. It's got a lot of sparkle and charm, but it won't do much in terms of modern, get up and go, push it. I didn't get that from this guitar, even though I put it through the paces with all those different sounds. So overall sound, it's not the most versatile guitar. If you want that sweet kind of thing, like, all that kind of stuff, I think it does all that. But in terms of overall sound, I'll give it the same score as I gave playability, 8.3. Moving on to value. I think it's a great price for what you're getting, and they really paid attention to details. This series actually reminds me a lot of like the mid-80s Made in Japan reissues that they were doing, which are now collectible and super high quality guitars, but where they just got all those vintage details right, down to the flathead screws on the black guard, the flathead screws holding the neck on, a vintage truss rod, the shape of the neck. Everything they did on this guitar, they paid a lot of attention to getting it vintage correct. And that's awesome. I actually really appreciate from a playability standpoint that they went with modern wiring too for the Telecaster controls. I'd much rather have the modern wiring because the middle position is one of my favorite guitar sounds ever, and that comes from a Tele only. So that's cool. Overall value, I think it's a great price at $1149 for what they're giving you. I will give it a high value score for this vintage kind of recreation. I'm going to go ahead and give it a 9.3 in value. That's going to bring us to an overall score of 8.6 for the Vintera II Nocaster, the 50s Nocaster. It was really cool. I think if you want a vintage vibe kind of Telecaster, you can get away if you want to spend a lot less money looking at the Squier Classic vibe if you want that kind of thing. In terms of a modern performance Telecaster, this is not that. This is really an for $1149, you're getting a vintage, 1950s Nocaster. It plays like that, it sounds like that, it will do that great. It won't do everything great. It's just got to fit your playing style. So drop a comment, let me know if this is the guitar for you. If you're going to buy this guitar or any others, click to buy new gear using our link. It really does help us. So thank you for buying new gear using our link. You're also going to get fast free shipping, easy payment plans. I'm telling you, it makes buying new gear super easy. And if this is the guitar for you, hit the link. If not, check out another demo on the channel. We've got demos of many guitars from all the brands. Let me know in the comments what guitar you're going to buy next. Thanks for watching this video. For Play and Trade Guitars, I'm John. That's Zach behind the camera. We'll see you next time on Play and Trade Guitars.